You'll call it from that. Oh, official now. It is.
I call to order the regular meeting of the Mount Pleasant City Commission, Monday, April 13th, 2026 at 7 p.m. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Mount Pleasant City Commission recognizes the Anishinaabe, whose ancestral lands the city stands upon today. We acknowledge the Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe and recognize that the three bands of Ojibwe, Saginaw, Black River, and Swan Creek, have resided on this land for over 200 years. Our acknowledgement of the full history of the tribe and our commitment to be good stewards of these ancestral lands is an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those ancestors who came before us. We give thanks to the generous care with which the Anishinaabe and those members of the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe of Michigan have given and continue to give to this land and our community. Clerk Schmelzer, please take the roll.
Commissioner Alsager,
Here.
Commissioner Demarath,
Here.
Commissioner Perschebacker,
Here.
Commissioner Rollins,
Here.
Commissioner Skiletsky,
Here.
Vice Mayor Ecke,
Here.
Mayor Wingard. We have quorum.
Thank you. All right, first item on the agenda this evening, we have proclamations and presentations, which includes a presentation by Director of Public Works, Jason Moore, on flooding issues.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor. This evening, I've got just a short presentation regarding some of the rain that we've got early this month. And just to set the stage, between the 1st and the 6th, we received over 3 inches of rain, so it was a significant rainfall. When I look back at the data for the last 10 years, if I'm looking at 5-day averages, it was in the top 10 for a rain event over those 10 years. So significant, but the last time we had an event similar was in 2022, so it's not that unusual. But tonight I'm going to talk about just a quick overview of some of the citywide impacts from the rain, followed by some details on a brief sanitary sewer overflow that we had at the Water Resource Recovery Facility, and our response, the environmental sampling that we did, and the steps that we're taking to improve wet weather operations. So broader rain-related issues in the city. Of course, you probably know that we shut down Island Park because of the flooding. That's something that hasn't happened in the recent few years, but sometimes it seems like it happens every year in the spring. So not that unusual. It's in the floodplain. So, but we had to shut it down. We received a number of phone calls from residents with wet basements. That was generally because of high water table, not due to any sewer issues. The storm sewer system in the city operated rather well, actually. And it tends to, when we're not talking about huge, intense rainfalls that are in a real short period. This was a longer period, and so it handled it rather well. We are in contact with MDOT, actually their consulting engineer that does their bridge inspections, just to have them take a look at our road bridges. Back in 17, we did get some erosion that happened because of that flood event, and we had to do some emergency repairs. And so we want to have that engineering firm take a look at that and make sure that we're not having any issues there. But we think it probably held up fine. So during the rain, during the rain event, the WRF experienced a short sanitary sewer overflow at the grit vortex area. On April 4th, roughly from 1:31 to 1:40, a 9-minute period, we estimate that about 20,000 gallons of overflow left the facility property through the on-site storm sewer and reached through the Chippewa River. This happened while operators were reconfiguring pumps to prevent filling our retention basin, which earlier that week we had an issue where we had to divert flow to that basin, and so we were, extra cautious about using up the rest of that volume. But that reconfiguration of pumps caused a brief triple pump situation, which overwhelmed the single grit vortex that was running at the time. So immediate response, we followed all the protocols immediately. Operators stopped the overflow within that 9-minute period. We notified Eagle through the pollution emergency alerting system. When we called them, we found out that several communities were, going through similar issues because of the wet weather. We also notified the Isabel County Health Department and local paper with the full details. We did water sampling both upstream and downstream of the plant and found that E. coli readings were actually higher upstream than downstream, indicating that we were actually polluting issues that were already present in the river because of the weather. So why it happened, root cause again was operational. We had a brief triple pump condition during the reconfiguration of the high service pumps that we're running. And I've got a picture there of these are the size pumps we're talking about. And so that's what caused the situation. And then next steps in prevention. To strengthen our response in future heavy rain events, we're updating our wet weather operation procedures to automatically bring both grit vortex units online when the forecast is calling for heavy rains. In fact, we're by automatic there, I'm talking about the standard operating procedure, but we're actually probably going to look into getting automated valves to make that an actual automated process through the SCADA system. This change, combined with our ongoing inflow and infiltration reduction work in the collection system, will increase capacity and resilience during wet weather events in the future. So in summary, the rainfall at the beginning of the month caused localized flooding issues, primarily at the Island Park and some basements due to high groundwater. With the public storm sewer performing well overall. At the WRF, we had that short 9-minute SSO of up to 20,000 gallons that reached the Chippewa River. Thanks to rapid response and sampling that showed dilution of existing river conditions, the impact was minimized. And we're already implementing procedures to changes to better handle similar events going forward. And with that, I'll take any questions that anyone might have.
Vice Mayor. When you say, first of all, thank you for this update, it helps. When you said that MDOT, you're consulting with MDOT to take a look at the bridge,
I want to make sure that I understand that it is that bridge over there or all our bridges.
Any of our road bridges, so the Broadway, the Lincoln and the Pickard, Street bridges.
So it's not one bridge.
Yep, it's all three of those, and we
Okay.
have, I can't remember which ones, do we have trouble with all of them, or in 17? Okay, so Broadway and Lincoln in 17, we had some scour along the bank, where, the bridge is. And so we had some repairs there, and so we just want to make sure that we're not having any other trouble there.
Can you clarify what you mean by having some scour along the bay?
So the rapid flow of the water around the embankments causes erosion, and that can take away soil and that from those areas. And so we put riprap in there to armor that after the 17 flood. And so we're just making sure that that's holding up well.
Okay. I'm asking just for clarity. I don't want to presume that I know. I don't know anything, so I'm asking.
Mhm.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yes, are we comfortable with our warning systems to, if this is gonna be our answer to the problem? That we can respond in adequate time to make sure that we're getting that online to avoid the situation in the future?
Yes, I believe so. The grit vortex, having both of those open ahead of time will protect us from this particular situation again. There's plenty of capacity in those two running. There's no reason not to run them when we've got this high flow. If the flow gets lower, they're not as effective if you run both of them because you don't get enough water through in either one to have them do the thing they're supposed to do. But when we have these particularly where we have this much warning ahead of time where, we've had some wet weather and the river's up and the flow is up at the plant. Yeah, I think we'll be good.
I know that standing operating procedures were a big part of our meeting last week. Are we looking at one for a certain threshold to turn that second valve on so that way everybody knows and we're on the same page that this is when it needs to be on?
Yes, exactly.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
Other members of the commission with questions? Not seeing any.
All right.
Thank you, Director Moore.
Thank you.
Okay. That brings us into additions and deletions to this evening's agenda. I believe we had one recommended item to us to make an addition this evening. Let's see. So I'm gonna go ahead and make that motion. I'd like to make a motion to add as number 19 in new business, a resolution to schedule a special election on August 4th, 2026.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion made by myself, Mayor Wingard, seconded by the Vice Mayor Eke. Any questions on that? All those in favor of the addition to the agenda, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Were there any other additions or deletions to the agenda at this time? Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda as modified?
I move that we approve the agenda as modified.
Seconded?
Okay, motion made by the Vice Mayor Eke, seconded by Commissioner Skulitsky. All those in favor of approving the agenda as so modified, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Okay. At this time, we'll be moving into public input on agenda items. If you are a member of the public and would like to speak on any item on the agenda, please step up to the microphone. You'll be given 5 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record, as well as the business item you are speaking on. If you are in the Zoom for the meeting, please indicate you would like to speak by using the raised hand function. Are there any emails? Any raised hands? Okay. Anyone in the audience for public input on agenda items? Not seeing any. I'm going to go ahead and close public input on agenda items. And we will move into receipt of petitions and communications. Manager DeSense, if you would.
Receipt of petitions and communications this evening includes the monthly report on police-related citizen complaints, first quarter investment report, receipt of the 2025 citywide annual report, minutes of the Traffic Control Committee regular meeting from February, and letter from resident regarding adoption of 2021 International Fire Code and Tenant Rights Committee.
Thank you. And then that will next bring us into our consent agenda. If you'd like to carry on, manager dissents.
Absolutely. Consent items this evening includes approval of the minutes from the regular meeting held March 23, 2026, approval of the minutes from the closed session held March 23, 2026, approval of minutes from the special meeting held April 6, 2026, receive proposed 2027 through 2032 capital improvement plan and set a public hearing for May 26, 2026 on the same. Consider approval of a permanent delegation of aviation fuel pricing authority to the airport manager, subject to city manager approval, and authorize the shift to a minimum floor margin structure to ensure the airport's continued fiscal stability and a resolution for the same. Consider awarding the contract for the 2026 construction services Mill Pond Park Weir improvements and Chippewa Waters Park Bank stabilization to Glasgow Construction for the total price of $249,528. Consider awarding the contract for the 2026 Franklin Street and Preston Street reconstruction project to Malley Construction of Mount Pleasant for $1,334,989. Consider approval of the vacation of existing ingress-egress easement across Central Michigan University property to access well site number 15 and accept the new easement location and authorize the city manager to sign the easement documents. Consider awarding the 2026 street sweeping disposal bid to Fisher Transportation of Mount Pleasant for $34.17 per ton. And consider approval of payrolls and warrants.
Okay. Thank you, Manager Dissents. Are there any items that members of the commission would like removed from the consent agenda and placed into the regular agenda under new business?
I have a question.
Yeah, certainly, Vice Mayor Ake.
Item number 11. May I ask Manager Dissent to clarify, explain, please?
Yeah, so try to summarize the issue that we're having over at the airport. Currently, our price versus the current market rate for jet fuel in particular is significantly off. Our current policy requires that we purchase and then have a margin of about a couple dollars per gallon that we're making on that fuel. The problem is when we get into situations like right now where we purchase jet fuel at maybe $5 a gallon, we have a $2 markup on that, selling it at $7 per gallon, but the market right now is $9 and higher. We're going to have individuals coming to our airport buying up a lot of that fuel at the much cheaper price, missing out and offering it at a lower price than what the market would hold. So we're missing out on some of those sales revenues. But then also we'll have to go and purchase $9 a gallon fuel, and then it'll take a long time for us to sell that. So moving to something like this will allow us greater flexibility in setting those rates in these difficult markets.
Okay. And in the past, who was primarily responsible for setting the rates?
So the rates are adopted by the city commission, or at least the structure of the rates are adopted by the city commission.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm in support. We can't be losing money, you know.
I have a
Commissioner
couple
Smith?
questions on a couple of the items. Number 14, it looks like a lot of that change is adjacent to the existing disc golf course on CMU campus. Has the pedestrian traffic been taken into consideration when assessing the new location for the easement?
Yeah, I believe that the new location for the easement was on offer by Central Michigan University and was their recommendation, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we do have our city engineer, Stacy Tawari. She's worked on this, so I know she's closer to this issue than I am.
This just allows us to access well site 15. It's not an active well site at this time. So right now the site is accessed from the west side near Tennyson Baseball Stadium. This would just give us an access through the parking lot of Tennyson Stadium to that well site. So it shouldn't really have any impact on any pedestrians.
Thank you. I also have a question regarding item 12. There was a specific note on this item with consideration to the varying bids. I'm curious if those were itemized at all to where there might be missing components that were submitted by some of the other contractors that Glasgow is not taking into consideration. I feel like this is a specialized project that we need to handle with kid gloves, with it being that close to White's Woods and our river.
I see Director Biscord has already headed to the mic, so.
I thought it was much easier. So yeah, we actually had this all itemized out, and reviewed the entire thing. And had our consultant that has been helping us along the way with this as well. And very confident that this organization can follow through with what they've put in there. So the company that was the low bidder is also a subcontractor of one of the other companies as well. So we definitely did our research to make sure that they could handle it.
Mhm.
But it's also one of those things too, where it's a very unique situation, and it's not one that people do all the time. And so we don't know what we don't know yet, I guess is the easiest way to put that. But we're confident based on the pricing that they gave us that they're very comfortable with what was put in the project. So we did sit down with them, and they're just a smaller organization. So.
Okay, yeah, I trust city staff to do their diligence when doing the research on these projects. So if you feel comfortable with them.
Yeah, like I said, we've got it all broke down all individually and did what we could. So, but yeah, they've got some pretty good references too. So.
Okay. I appreciate your vigilance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions from members of the commission? I have one item I'd like to move from the consent agenda. Item number 7, approval of minutes from the regular meeting held March 23rd, 2026. There is some language I wanted to clarify in there. So we're going to move item number 7 into new business. We'll consider that first. So if you're following along with all the changes we've made this evening, it'll be item number 7, then 18, and then 19. Unless there are other questions or items the members of the commission would like to move around, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as modified?
I move that we approve the consent agenda. What? Excuse me? I move that we approve the consent agendas, items as modified.
I second.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Okay, that brings us into our first and only public hearing of the evening. This is item number 17. Public hearing to allow for public input and to consider the amendment of section 110.28B regarding the operation of transitory food service units and the issuance of permits, licenses, or approvals for transitory food service units. Manager DeSense, if you would.
Absolutely. Staff has worked with City Attorney Mike Homier's office to incorporate changes to the food truck ordinance as requested by the City Commission at our February 9th meeting. This includes waiving application fees for units that operate solely on the applicant's property. Proposed changes also include allowing food trucks to operate as part of the city's special events and farmers market. After the public hearing, the City Commission is asked to adopt the proposed ordinance.
Okay. Before we begin the public hearing, are there any questions from members of the commission? Not seeing any. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing at this time. If you would like to speak on this topic, please step up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. You'll be given 5 minutes. If you are on Zoom, please use the raised hand function. Are there any emails? Are there any raised hands on Zoom? Okay. Not seeing anyone in the audience rushing up to speak on the public hearing. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at this time and turn back to the members of the commission for discussion or a motion.
I feel like we had a good chance to discuss the reason why we needed to make this change. We heard from some of the business owners that were impacted, and I am ready to make a motion to approve the proposed ordinance amendment as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, there was a motion by Commissioner Sklitsky and seconded by the Vice Mayor Eke. This is an ordinance amendment. Could I get a reminder if we need a roll call vote or if we can just do this all? I just can't. Voice is fine, thank you. All those in favor of the amendment of passing the amendment as presented, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. That brings us into new business, starting with item number 7. Those following along at home, item number 7 was an item I requested moved from the consent agenda. That was approval of minutes from the regular meeting held March 23rd, 2026. Specific language I was looking at that meeting, we had discussed and moved forward with the creation of a special committee that was going to explore the idea of a tenants' rights commission for the city of Mount Pleasant. The language used in the unapproved minutes referenced a move by the mayor and seconded by Commissioner Alsager to create a special committee focused on the rights and experience of tenants within the city of Mount Pleasant. I would like to make a motion to correct and modify that language to reflect to create a special committee of the Mount Pleasant City Commission to explore the further creation of a city border commission focused upon the rights and experiences of tenants within the city of Mount Pleasant. And that is my motion to make that amendment to the minutes.
You need a second?
I would need a second.
I will second.
Okay. Motion made by myself, the mayor, seconded by the vice mayor. Any discussion or questions before proceeding with the vote? Okay, all those in favor of amending the minutes as motioned, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. That brings us into item number 18. Consider awarding the contract for the 2026 City Hall retaining wall and streetscape replacement project to McGurk Sand and Gravel for $1,369,597 and approve a budget amendment of $60,000 in the general fund. Manager sense.
Absolutely. So we're joined here by our city engineer, Stacy Tawari. She's going to provide the city commission with a presentation on this project. I know we've done this before, but it's just been a while, so we figured we'd bring it back to the city commission, just make sure everyone's good with the project. Then after the presentation, we're going to ask that the city commission approve the contract with McGurk Sand and Gravel. With that, I will turn it over to Stacy.
Just to give you a refresher on the project. The project will include replacing all of the existing concrete retaining walls on the south side of the City Hall building, the railings, and then the streetscape, which is highlighted in orange, adjacent to the retaining walls. So some history on the project. When the Borden building was redone back in 2008 timeframe, the existing retaining walls that were there on site that are still here, they were underpinned and refurbished, but were left in place, I believe, as a cost savings measure. But you can see the foundations on the bottom left side were underpinned, and we're having some issues now with settling and displacement of those walls. And we've also had those walls recoated 6 times since 2008. So what we're seeing out there is we're seeing displacement of the walls to the north, some settling, and then, as I mentioned, they're continuing to crack and spall. And then the movement of the walls is creating some failure in the sidewalk on the north side of Broadway. So here's some pictures on the west side walls. And then here's some on the east side. Here's some pictures on the streetscape. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see that the sidewalk's moving away, or the wall is moving away from the sidewalk. And then we've done some epoxy patches to try to deal with some areas where it's heaving and cracking from the sidewalk moving. Costs, as Manager DeSantis mentioned, McGurk Sand and Gravel was the low bid, but they were over our budget amount. And additionally, we need some gas service work done to get out of the way back here behind the commission chambers. That we estimate is another $10,000. So we're asking for a budget amendment of $60,000 to cover those overages over the budget. There is a cost share on this project with the Borden Creamery Condo Association for the wall portions of the project, so that would include the streetscape items. It's a 75% city share, 25% condo, which includes engineering. So our estimate is about $327,000 would be the condo share. Their final share would be based on the actual construction quantities. And then the total city share with engineering is about $1.2 million. Project timeline, assuming that the project gets approved tonight, then we'll start construction in June and it should be finished by the end of August. Any questions?
Vice Mayor.
Mary.
Oh, you know, if Mary had a question.
No, he called on you.
I just was looking this way, so.
It's
yeah,
okay.
for sure.
Am I to understand that this wall is part of the historical boarding building?
Correct, yeah, we estimate they're probably about 100 years old, but yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna match the aesthetics and the shape of the walls as they were, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's where I was going. How much of the aesthetics are you going to save or, you know?
We won't be saving any of it, but we will be matching, so it has the same, in terms of the walls, the railings will be a little bit different, but, because we need to meet current building codes.
Modernize it.
Yes, mhm.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. You've answered my question. Thank you.
Commissioner Houseacre.
I was just gonna say, it sounds like a good thorough presentation and I thank you.
Thank you.
I had a couple questions. You had answered it's expected to begin in June. Are we expecting any disruption to the roadway as far as like traffic flows and whatnot goes? It's right there, so.
Right, Broadway will remain open. There may be some periodic closures when they're bringing in materials. We'll probably lose this parking lane on the north side of Broadway for most of it. The sidewalk will be closed for the duration on the north side, so there'll be a pedestrian detour. So,
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. Let's see. Actually, no, yep, that answers all my questions there.
Okay.
Other questions from members of the commission? Okay.
Are there going to be some water removal measures taken? I'm sure there's some pooling and stuff like that along that wall and with the runoff coming downhill.
Yeah, and we think that's part of some of the reason why it's failing now is there's some poor soils and things that were buried in there that shouldn't have been and not good drainage. So there will be new drainage system behind those walls to make sure they're drained properly. We do have dewatering in the contract also. So if they run into high groundwater, we have a pay item for that if they need to use that to pump the water while they're working.
Excellent.
Yep.
Commissioner Dunn.
Okay, I have a question, but it's not an engineering question. I can wait.
That might be good.
Okay. Only other something that the other question I was thinking of, I apologize if this is not too terribly important, but you know, we have a lot of historical items throughout the building from when the building was renovated. Does your team kind of have like a sense of like when do they collect items to keep around as a keepsake or something, or?
Well, we have a little museum up in the engineering department of things we found on job
Just fun
sites.
things and everything.
Yeah, so when we did town center, we found some really neat, 100-year-old Coke bottles and medicine bottles and things like that, or plates or neat things, but, And, at Broadway and Main, we found the old brick road was buried underneath, so that was kind of neat, and
Gotcha.
yeah, saving some of the old bricks.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I have a follow-up then. So is there any part of that wall that you might preserve then as a historical item?
Probably not.
Why not?
I mean, you're welcome to take a piece if you'd like.
No, too many books in my house. I don't even know.
No, it's in very poor condition.
Uh-huh.
It's falling apart. All the concrete is just
Mhm.
breaking apart. So,
Okay,
yeah.
so we're not, should we worry about wiring problems, electric,
Yeah, we've already, consumers moved the electrical panel out of the way, and then
Okay.
DTE gas, as I mentioned, they're gonna be moving the gas meters out of the way. Our building official is, we had an AC unit that needed to be worked on anyways, a smaller one, not our main one for the building. I think it services the server rooms or something. That's been moved already, so.
Okay,
There are some fiber and electrical and things we're gonna have to work around in the sidewalk, but the contractor that will all be mistaked, so they know where that is.
thank you.
Yep.
Not seeing any other questions jumping forward. Thank you. Commissioner Demorov, did you
Oh,
have a question that was
yeah.
unrelated to engineering?
Correct. Okay, so I was curious about the condo agreement. Is it J.E. Johnson, are they in agreement with paying their 25% cost sharing?
They have a different opinion.
Okay. So I guess I kind of want to see where that's falling because, if they are supposed to be paying 25, if it comes out to the city going to put the bill when they decide they don't want to pay.
We are currently in contact with the city attorney's office on this, and I think we'll have to proceed accordingly. I don't entirely know what that path forward looks like. But again, we are very resolved that it is clearly laid out in our agreement that they are on the hook for their portion of this project.
Okay.
May I follow up on that, please?
Vice Mayor?
Manager DeSense, okay, so I'm interpreting what you said, the subtext of what you said. It sounds to me as if in the original agreement, this entity did agree to pay 25% of the repairs, should that happen. Is that my understanding of what you're saying?
Correct. They are on the hook for the amount, essentially the whole board and building is a condo. And so they're on the hook for the amount of the space that they represent in this building, correct?
I like the phrase on the hook. So in other words, what I'm hearing again, subtext is that somehow they're reneging on that agreement or on being on the hook for the 25%. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Okay. And you're having a conversation with the city council or attorney regarding this?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions or items of discussion before a motion is made? Or a motion?
I'm making a motion to accept.
No, I was asking for if there was a motion.
Okay. I move that we approve the awarding of the contract for the 2026 City Hall retaining wall and streetscape replacement project to McGurk Sand and Gravel for $1,669 and oh my God, okay. And $1,369,597 and approve a budget amendment of $60,000 in the general fund.
Seconded.
A lot of numbers, disorienting.
Motion made by the Vice Mayor and seconded by Commissioner Skolitsky to approve the contract as presented. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Okay. That brings us to item number 19, which was added to the agenda at the beginning of the meeting. This is a resolution to schedule a special election on August 4th, 2026. And I would turn to Clerk Schmelzer as our election expert to fill us in a bit more.
This resolution is necessary to ensure that we're fully complying with our charter and providing that clear, lawful process for filing that partial term vacancy. While we do have that election scheduled for the August 4th state primary, we did get notifications from our county officials that authorization for us to place those names or that candidate and vacancy position on the ballot. It would be a special election since our charter regulates our commission elections for the November dates. So adopting this resolution will allow us to avoid that confusion and meet our legal obligation under our charter.
Okay, thank you, Clerk Schmelzer. Looking at the commission, any questions on this? Not seeing
I'd like to
any.
make a motion to accept the resolution as presented.
A second.
Okay, motion made was by Commissioner Skalitsky, seconded by Vice Mayor Eke. We talked about this briefly prior, Clerk Schmelzer, did we need, this wasn't included in the original packet, should we, does this need to be read at all, or as? No, I'm seeing, okay, thank you. Okay. The motion was made by Commissioner Skalitsky and seconded by Vice Mayor Eke to approve the resolution as presented. All those in favor of approving the resolution, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Resolution passes. Alrighty. Okay, that is going to bring us into announcements on city-related issues and new business. Commissioner Alsaker? Passed over a bit this evening. I apologize. I keep
It's okay.
missing to look over my shoulder.
There are faster voices on that side of the dais. I just want to clarify something with Manager DeSense. There's some brush clipping cleanup. Thank you. That's occurring. And am I right that we've increased the number from 150 to 300 households?
I believe, Director Moore, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're a little over 300, in fact. Was it? Okay.
I don't know.
Oh,
So an uncapped amount.
okay. Well, that's what I wanted to mention, that if you're still in the process of putting it out, get it out. Oh. Okay, noted. That was all I wanted to talk about.
Okay. Commissioner Demoroff?
Oh, nothing this time.
Okay. Vice Mayor Eke?
I'm actually a follow-up to Commissioner Alsager's question or comment. I'm not asking people to go put out their brush right now, but since there is considerable interest in this, is this something we're considering doing maybe once a year, a repeat? It's just, once a year, we do that with leaves. So you either get it out on that Monday or you pay for it.
We think a lot of the popularity this year is because of the ice storms that we had over the winter, caused a lot of brush to be created. But yeah, looking at the popularity of it, we did, it's probably 10 years ago now or so, and we were doing it on a regular basis like that, and the demand kind of petered off. And so we dropped it down to that 150 slots, and we just did the, call in, and that seemed to work pretty well. But it does appear that maybe every 2 or 3 years, we ought to do something like this just to help, clean up the neighborhoods, or help people help themselves to clean up the neighborhoods. But we will have to have a discussion about solid waste funding in that. Used to be at the bag tag program, and that was a little bit easier to fund these sorts of things. And now with the cart system and working through Granger, we may have to consider how we handle that. So.
Okay. I want to say thank you for, making it citywide. I know a number of people who are really glad that it's happening because they thought it was just the first 150 And when they realized that, it's open, it's citywide, they were like, oh, wow, this is excellent. And that's why I asked about the possibility of making it, regularizing it maybe once a year or every 2 years. And you're correct. It will require some kind of funding, maybe line item funding somewhere in your budget. But I think it is a wise thing to do because it will help a lot of people, but it also helps to keep our own city clean. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Perschbacher.
Just as I always say, with the weather warming up, go out and enjoy the parks. But remember, with the weather warming up and the recent rain that we've had, that means that there's going to be a lot of bugs out. So, be careful when you're out in the park system. When you get home, please check yourself, make sure you don't have any ticks. There will be an increase of ticks and mosquitoes and such. And if you take a pet out with you, make sure that you're checking them over as well.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Perschbacher. Commissioner Rollins.
I am living.
Okay. Commissioner Sklitsky.
I'd like to take a second to remind everybody to be kind. It is the season for early pollinators, which they are a keystone species. So, just be courteous and considerate. And I think the recent rainfall is a good reminder to just kind of help chip in clearing the drains so that way we don't wind up with big backloads. So,
okay. Thank you, Commissioner Sklitsky. For myself, I'd just like to let residents know that the Isabella County Historical Society will be hosting Isabella County History Day, celebrating Isabella County's 167th birthday, coming up later this month. It will be Saturday, April 25th, at the Commission on Aging. There will be historical displays from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. and the quilt show will be taking place from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So again, great day if you're not already down at the Shepherd Maple Syrup Festival, get on over to the Commission on Aging to, again, see some of the great displays on our local history. With that, let's see, that is going to bring us into public comments on agenda and non-agenda items. If you are a member of the public and would like to speak on any topic, please step up to the microphone. You'll be given 5 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. If you are on Zoom, please use the raised hand feature to indicate you would like to speak.
Good evening. Margin Notestein, 1361 South Crawford Street. I'm going to be talking again about the southwest corner. Surprise, surprise. 157 acres it was. And it's at the corner of Bloomfield and Crawford. It has been a subject of rezoning for at least 2 years now. And in your goals and objectives for 2026, it was anticipated to be completed in the first quarter, changing it from a planned residential since 1980 to a new agreed rezoning. 40 years ago, the PRD was expecting that it would be for needed residential uses in our landlocked city. People were thinking and planning ahead. And now in 2026, we still need homes, maybe even needed more than before. It needs to be zoned for houses and homes. These homes will be additional taxes for the city tax base. Each month I've been here for commission meetings, and I see growing expenses on our city budget, some worry of a deficit. As leaders, you should grow our tax base, not zero it out. So 25 years ago, it sort of looked like this. It was a large area. Then 37 units were built over here for West Point Village. And it was an approved 70, but now they only built 37 and now they're not really wanting to build the 70. This is sort of a marshy kind of an area. I don't hear anybody even talking about that little purple area. This stripy area is the 55 acres of CMU. This area up here is still a big question mark. I still haven't heard anybody talk about it much, But this is the area that I'm mostly concerned about because I want it to be used for homes. I don't want it to be something that's zero tax base. I want it to be something that will add some sort of numbers to our taxes. And I thank you for your patience. I wish you would tell me if something is not happening because I haven't heard anything in so long about this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Dev Wazlewski. I've been here before. I live at 1017 Countryway, Unit B. I forgot to say that last time. But I'm here because the Tenant Rights Committee is interesting to me. Tenants' rights are very important, and we're seeing more people renting these days than ever. And so it would be nice to just have something where we can all come together and talk to the leaders, but also like landlords, and have a conversation about like, how do we make this work? But I do want to talk about how I had a conversation with my landlord the other day, because I just contacted him. I'm just like, hey, Tim, can we just sit down and have a conversation? He owns AMG Management. I rent a duplex from him. I just sat down and had a conversation, and we agreed on a lot. But the one thing that he said that really stood out to me is that he wants to, the AMG management's really good. They're really good for their tenants. I think that like they're a model of what other apartment complexes and stuff should be, and like other landlords should be. He's talking about though that the one thing that he wants as a landlord is more well-paying jobs. He wants more well-paying jobs that the tenants can have access to. So then his bottom line is not as much of an issue. I'm struggling to pay rent every month. I've been fired from jobs eliminated, scammed out of money from jobs. Like I worked for a guy out of Clare, and this guy was like, hey, I'm offering a 40 to 50K job for you. And then I accrued 150 hours of work. And I mean, it's Clare, it's not Mount Pleasant, but I accrued 150 hours of work, 30 days of work, and I had to fight through the state to just get my money from him. And this was like a decent paying job. And so I feel like if we as tenants and as landlords and workers just had more access to well-paying jobs, and also had time where we can sit down with our landlords, then we can have those conversations about like, what do you want as my landlord? The landlord wants us to get paid better. Like, I know there's a lot of landlords that focus on college students and all that. They got their own lane. There's some practices I don't agree with, but if we can all just have that tenants' right committee come together, talk about what's the real issues. Like, I love my landlord. He plows my driveway and mows my lawn. Like, that's all I need, honestly. I'll take care of other stuff. But if I had access to a better paying job and I had less stress, and then they had less stress of trying to reach out to me to try and get the payment, and then I feel like at the end of the day, we would all feel a lot better about renting and stuff in this town. He mentioned like a data center that like was blocked from being around here, and I got my own opinions on that. But there's a lot of other things that can come into the town to benefit people and have better salaries and all that. For example, since everyone's here, I work at Pleasant City Coffee. My hours just got cut down from 19 to 13 hours. So like, y'all need to start showing up to your small businesses downtown, because it's like Josh, the owner right there, he's a great guy. He needs more money because people just aren't coming in and spending money. But gas prices are also expensive. And it's like, okay, cool. But then Seven Brew comes in and everybody's going to Seven Brew, I guess. And it's like, are people coming to Pleasant City? Who knows? I'm just using this time to be able to plug that, because I want more hours and Josh wants more business. And I want to be able to have more hours, to have more money to pay my rent. Then my landlord's happy and I'm happy. Bam. All right. Anyway, I would be on that committee.
Thank you.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. My name is Fabian Martinez, and I'm a resident at 602 West Broomfield Street, Apartment A. I'm speaking to you all today about the importance about supporting your local tenants. We shop, we raise our kids, and believe it or not, we drink water and breathe oxygen in the same city. And much like people, everyone here in Mount Pleasant, we all deserve adequate shelter just as much as every other resident does here as well. We are future home buyers and hopeful long-term residents of this wonderful city. A roof and shelter is great, but the quality of the housing makes the difference. Broken heating, smoke damage, burst pipes experienced by tenants and fixed by landlords, as landlords are required to do, is not the case for many in the town. Tenants do not know where to go for assistance, nor is there any information provided by the city. If city plans on growing and keeping existing residents, it must give its renters the housing that we would expect for long-term residency. To tackle this issue, tenants must be provided with information and resources to make sure landlords, large and small, meet their obligations when families pay their dues. There are many good landlords, but there are frequent offenders who are negligent and leads to abysmal housing for the residents that reside on their properties. Thank you for your time, and remember, many rent in this town. If you want renters like me to stay here in Mount Pleasant, then stand with your renters, make sure that they are provided resources so they can tackle housing issues that they may be experiencing. If not, the city seal might be replaced with a revolving door. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any raised hands on Zoom? Okay, are there any emails? Gotcha. Okay, not seeing anyone else queued up for public comment this evening. I'm going to go ahead and close public comments at this time. It is 7:56 and we still have a work session on the agenda. Is there a desire for a recess at this time, or do we?
10 minutes.
Gotcha. Let's see. We are going to go ahead and resume at 8:10. We'll stand at recess. Okay.
I brought this.
Right.
$100 for ice cream. And I have to get in. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Six.
Right.
I'm like, does this stuff not melt? Yeah, what's so special about this ice cream? Trust me, I just. But we went there every night. $89, yeah. That was even the fence. I lunch. And she put it in her carry-on. Exactly. Right, not it stopped by TSA.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so then you can see ours, yes.
What's that?
Go someplace fun.
I don't,
I did, went down to Florida.
right, I don't know how much we're gonna get. Yeah, it's just right up there. Cause it's. So, yeah. That is a good one. That's good, yeah. Sometimes it's like
Yes, exactly. Oh, I know, like.
Yeah, it's like becomes defenseless. So. Yeah. I do that once. You have to embrace. If you want to send me a text, then I call this. What is it? Autobahn. I think Autobahn. When do they cut down? They cut down trees. Okay, no, it's Autobahn. Autobahn is just take people from the Autobahn. All you have to do is pay all of them and now. And I would call that. So it's good to have, especially lost, if you lost one, or like, you don't want a car. Yeah, no, that's great. I still have your numbers. Yeah. I got it. Yeah, that, oh, no.
It is 8:09, but without objection, I'm going to gavel us back in. Oh, is there objection? Oh, okay.
I said yes.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Manager Dissents, is going to be talking to us here in a moment. We have our work session this evening discussing the future of the former Mount Pleasant Center property.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, City Commission. Thank you very much for having me. So the mayor just asked that I tee up some history on Mount Pleasant Center property and kind of take us up to our work session and where we're at today. So I'm going to do just that, maybe about a handful of slides here. I'll talk about a brief history of the property and its purchase, provide a brief overview of the legal issues. We are joined here by Mr. Keith Brown of Foster Swift, who works with our city attorney, Mike Homier. So he's available for any questions regarding the legalese that we may have. And then I'll just kind of tee us up for where we are today. So history, 300 acres was purchased from the state of Michigan in 2011, formerly operated by the state for the intellectually disabled, this being the Mount Pleasant Center, or the former Mount Pleasant Center. The adjacent property is located at the former Michigan Indian Industrial Boarding School. The initial mission when purchasing the 300 acres was for the increase in the city's tax base and the removal of blighted and nuisance buildings. So we go from 2011 until 2019, the city removed old buildings, cleaning up the site, and started to make plans for future development. The city spent roughly $6.5 million cleaning up this site in total during that period of time. In 2020, the city learned of issues related to the deed provided by the state of Michigan, of which the city commission is well aware of the differing terms, public purpose versus public use. On those legal issues, acting legislation allowed the sale of the property, which uses the term public purpose, which allows for uses such as economic development. State authored a deed restriction to required public use restriction. The city cannot use the property outside of government buildings, facilities, and those kind of things. Deed restriction was successfully challenged in circuit court in 2023. However, the state had appealed and ultimately won at the Court of Appeals, maintaining the current public use language in the deed restriction. So that takes us to where we're at today. The deed restriction limits future activities to public use only. There is also a memorandum of understanding with the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe regarding any future activities or development. Anything like that would be, depending on where it's at in the property, would be required to perform some form of an archaeological study in certain areas and those kind of things. Questions to consider for the City Commission this evening. What is the City Commission's intent with this property? Does the City Commission see any future public use of the property? And what are our current goals and objectives related to the property? That said, I can certainly answer any questions on history or anything like that. And again, we also have Mr. Brown here who can answer any legal questions.
Can you explain for the audience what public use would mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So the difference in terms of public use versus public purpose. Public use, according to the state, is going to be very restrictive to only those things that would be essentially activities that we do as a government entity. So think city hall, think city buildings, public safety buildings, recreation facilities, those kind of things. Specifically, uses that we actually deliver the services for, those kind of things. Versus public purpose, the city had tried to use the term public purpose in the enacting legislation, which allowed us to purchase the property. And they chose to do so very wisely because the city had previously won a case with the Michigan Supreme Court, which argued the idea that public purpose is something that could include economic development, those kind of things. And I see we're miking up the attorney, so I may have messed something up there. Oh, okay. No, I'm getting the thumbs up. Okay, never mind. I'm getting that.
So public use means, the term I use is non-rateable, which means that there is no tax base.
Correct.
Okay.
Commissioner Alsaker.
Recently, I learned that the Mount Pleasant cross-country teams have a course out there.
That's correct.
And in my past, I had some family members compete in a bike race out there. So there's some use that I can see to retaining some of the property so that some activities could continue. That's just my opinion.
Understood.
Other members of the commission. Commissioner Sklinski.
Yes, judging from what we heard from the presentation from the tribe here in one of our recent meetings, I'm curious if there's any interest in the commission to lease a portion of the property to the tribe to further our relationship with them, given the contributions that they make on an annual basis with their proceeds, the 2% donations. I think it would be good to foster the relationship with the tribe personally.
Vice Mayor Eke.
Yeah, but you're saying leasing, but leasing would amount to economic, would have economic implications. And
If we wanna, I believe part of the property is currently leased, for example, so like the northern portion of the property we lease for farming purposes. Lease fall within
does that fall,
public use?
yeah, does that fall within public use or public purpose, purpose? Because given what you just said, you said, we couldn't use it for economic, for public purpose. So leasing the implication would be economic gains for the city. But public use, my understanding from the way you talked about it and from earlier conversations is that the city couldn't, I can't find the phrase, but I'm going to use benefit economically, we couldn't develop it for economic purposes. We could, but public use would involve maybe using it for recreation services, maybe even grazing, if the city had cows or sheep or goat. Conservation, parks, right? Trails, and I think, because of that limitation, I'm wondering, I have been thinking about this, also to connect with what my colleague here is saying. I don't know how the leasing to the tribe would translate from the state's perspective, whether it's public use or public purpose. But the other has to do with, a consideration of maybe, certain acres that we could return, to the tribe, because the tribe has been talking about rehabilitating the portion, the acres of the land that they have received, and based on the presentation they made, before us a few weeks ago, where they were talking about educational purposes, museum, a remembrance, a memorial, or a remembrance space, space of healing. I'm thinking that one of the things we could do also is to connect to that, because that seems to me to underscore the idea of public use, which is something, that benefits the public, that is not there necessarily from us for economic. We're not gaining monetarily from it, but we are offering it in service of the public.
Yeah, checking in with staff on one of the questions that was presented. Does leasing fall under public purpose or economic development? Wanting clarification on that.
Yeah, lawyer.
You guys are doing great. So two things to that. The end question is less about the lease and more about what the actual use is going to be, right? So if a lease were made with were entered into with the tribe that still use the land for those public uses, right? That the state considers a public use in terms of government facilities, park, a memorial, those kinds of things, that would still be a public use, right? As far as I recall, the state didn't make this argument in the city's case, but in another situation I've been involved in with DTMB on a very similar issue, the state has taken a position that the a local government that owns the land, if it benefits economically from that lease, in terms of like a real rent payment, wouldn't be a public use, right? If the city were to say, we lease the land or portion of the land to the tribe for $1, then you're not actually gaining any financial benefit, right? Or in exchange for some other benefit. That's definitely something we could discuss with the state, but in my previous conversations about other projects with DTMB, they've kind of made that distinction.
Okay.
Does that make help?
Yeah, that helps.
Sure. Members who haven't had a chance to speak yet, if anyone, Commissioner Rollins or Commissioner Demerol.
I guess for me, I think looking into if this does qualify as the public use aspect of using some of it for solar or energy. Sorry, using some of it for solar or some sustainable energy production where we can benefit the city and keep our energy costs local and lowered. I don't know if that falls under the public use, but I think something like that just helps our city become more sustainable, especially with geopolitics and the way energy prices adjust to that. This could potentially give us a sustainable future in energy. I know it's not necessarily something that would just get rid of our energy, payments, but if it's something that could help, I think, and it falls in the public use, I think I would like to look at something like that.
Gotcha. Commissioner Rollins.
You keep thinking of a public municipal pool, like a recreation center. I mean, it was voted down several years back, but I think, municipal pool would basically draw in revenue for upkeep, not only from the city, but countywide, and maybe two county, Gratiot and Clare County too. I mean, that would be a great use of, for the public.
Gotcha. I wanted to, I did want to just double back on the leasing conversation, because that I know that in conversations that we've had with staff, that's been different commissioners we've had conversations at different points about the concept of like leasing for a solar field, for example. We retain ownership of the property. But if we leased a portion of it to, let's say, Consumers Energy, put in a field of solar panels, they would be paying the city leasing like a set amount for lease income, let's say, but they would be using the energy for just to amplify the grid at that point. But would that then be considered economic development?
I'm going to use the lawyer's line and say that's a great question. That's interesting. That's something that I think would be worth a conversation with DTMB about. The state obviously has a renewable energy goal, and it would be interesting to know, would the state find a difference in whether the energy is produced for use for the city's buildings, right? Or if it's just for the grid, right? If there's a difference, Detroit has something like that, right? Where they have solar fields that have been used on like Viking properties to power city buildings, right? That would be an interesting conversation to maybe bring with them and say, hey, would the state consider that use of public use, right? In terms of, obviously, in a lot of ways, it would align with state policy, right? But again, at the end of the day, I think that's a great question. We should ask them.
Okay. Vice Mayor, okay.
It seems to me that part of the reason why we're having this work session is to decide what direction we want to go with this particular piece of property. And maybe that's what we need to really figure out so that we can at least give staff some direction in terms of what to begin to explore. I mean, do we want to keep the property, develop it, or work on it ourselves, or do we want to look at how to, I mean, at a certain point that there've been, some of us have had conversations, and I do recall that that's come up a couple of times in terms of maybe giving a certain acreage of this piece of property, returning that acreage or certain acreage to the tribe if we cannot develop it, if we can't use it, if the restriction prohibits us from doing anything, that amounts to some kind of economic development on it. It has historical purposes, it has cultural purposes, or at least relevance for this particular city. So I am just trying to figure out what we want to do. I mean, and especially if we're thinking of having some conversation with the tribe at a certain point. At this moment, I have no sense of where we're going or what we're going to do. And for me, that's a conundrum. We need to figure out what direction we head. At least talk about it.
Commissioner Sklitsky.
Yes, the point of my comments earlier were, the goal is ultimately for the tribe to retain stewardship of the property. We heard from their work that they're pushing to gain a national recognition, national landmark. So I think that anything that we do with the property needs to have that into consideration. So if they're investing millions and millions of dollars to refurbish the buildings, putting all these hundreds of hours into meetings to get this recognition, whatever we put next to it needs to be respectful to that effort and coincide with their vision. So talks of a pool, of solar panels, to imagine that next to those buildings, it kind of gives me the ick, for lack of better words. Just personal thoughts.
I might jump in there. I would agree with you. I think so. Moving away from the moderator here a little bit for it. My personal interest as far as like examining the property, one, it is a very large property. It has very diverse landscape, but it also, more than anything, has significant cultural ties and impact to our friends of the Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe, and being good partners. I think you put it well when you're saying respect. The work we do needs to be respectful of the tribe's vision of that property as they conduct that work. As I've examined it, I've gone back and forth on like my personal opinions on potential development there. I think at the core, I would very much like to see, again, as you talk about, however it occurs, stewardship of at least the portion of property that would be necessary to connect the east and west properties owned by the tribe. On the west side of the property is a cemetery. On the east side is the industrial boarding school. I think at the very least, as we're considering this, that portion of property should be something that we should have conversation on, about how can we support the tribe's vision in this. I think it was acknowledged that if the concern is about money and the investment we had put into the property of 6.5 million, and then plus attorney fees over the last 15 years, I think since over the last 26 years, we've seen approximately, like, if we even averaged it out, roughly $1 million a year in grant funding from the tribe to us for different projects that we work in cooperation with. I think, I think that kind of respect and partnership there, would be an incredible action for us to undertake. I think it would be really powerful. People always talk about economic development, but I think the social and cultural development that could be that we would experience from doing something of either leasing or even potentially conveying some or all of the property back to the tribe. I think working in tandem with their vision would be an important part of this conversation. So yes, Commissioner Sklitsky, I agree with you on that. To clarify, if there's any, in my mind, if there was any development such as like a solar field, for example, I think of the northernmost portion of the property, which is actively used for agriculture currently, which is separated from the primary historical portions by creek bed and large forested areas. So as far as that kind of development, that has been my thought process on that as I've looked at this myself. Other members of the commission at this time? Vice Mayor, okay.
I'm curious to know if, how many of us are even considering returning a portion of, the land to the tribe. We will not be setting any precedents. I'm gonna promise you that, because land returns have happened, the Osage, the Potawatomi in Illinois, Lac du Flambeau in Wisconsin. The most recent one was in California. I think it's about 900 acres of Yosemite National Park was ceded back. So we're not creating, we will not be the originators of giving back the land, because it has significance. We've been talking about healing. The tribe has, the summer program on healing, honoring, and remembering, and we participate in it. And as we've all acknowledged, the tribe, we have received several funding, from the 2% funding from the tribe to support, things. Again, I go back to that presentation where we had the tribe present to us what they are currently trying to do with rehabilitating that particular place. And there are, so we're talking about cultural, historical trauma, right? The act of rehabilitation cannot be just simply one-sided. The act of healing, as far as I'm concerned, for me, cannot be one-sided where it is just the tribe. We are participants. And so, we participate in the healing. And I think that part of that participation is also considering, the possibility as a gesture of honoring, the tribe in its activity or in its attempt to heal us, to heal this community. We give back in part or in whole the land to the tribe as stewards. There also have been cases of joint stewardship where, the municipality and, the tribe in question work together. We're thinking about ecological, sustainable management and use of space. So I am asking, of course, by now, where my head is and where my heart is going. But for me, it is important. It is important for us. One, I am happy that we're even talking about it publicly because we need to begin. This is part of that process. But again, I am asking that we think about that consideration And we may have to come back and say, here is, this acreage, number of acres that we might be interested in letting go, returning, to honor the tribe without, expectations of anything, And, here is the acreage that we keep, or just hand over the rest, all of it to the tribe. Because the land belonged to them originally anyway. And that way we address historical wrongs too, and we help move our community forward. I just think that we want to think about that. So I don't know how many of my colleagues here are even thinking along those lines, or might even consider it, or are interested in considering that. I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
no, yeah.
I just need to know, that's all.
It's a conversation. Commissioner Alsager.
I'll go back to my first statement that Mount Pleasant High School uses some of the property, and I think that would be a good starting point for retaining some of the land.
Gotcha. Jumping in here, the three key uses that I've gathered this evening, cooperation with the tribe on property usage, recreation opportunities, and then the potential for any small revenue generating were the interests I heard discussed and everything this evening as we were going through. That sound accurate as far as like taking off specifics and just focusing on like general subject matter?
Could you go repeat that just so that I'm clear?
Yep, cooperation with the tribe. As we're communicating with staff, our intent or the direction we'd like to head in. The three aspects of this that I've heard this evening was cooperation with the tribe.
What does that mean for you?
For me,
How are you?
So again, not looking to close the conversation with this, but looking to check back in with the rest of the commission as we're having this conversation. To me, when I say cooperation with the tribe, I was thinking of the phrase that Commissioner Sklitsky used when we were saying anything we do with the property being respectful of the tribe's vision. To me, that would necessitate direct conversations between and further conversations probably between city staff, I would imagine the manager and his counterpart at the very least, on getting a clearer picture of exact development that we're looking and how we could potentially contribute to that with the property, or how different ideas for development might affect that development.
Okay, would that include returning certain portion to the tribe, the possibility?
I would say yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm interested in having that conversation.
However unlikely, it hasn't been asked, but there is always the possibility they could say, we don't directly want control. That's why I say cooperation.
I agree with you.
But again, as an individual, I want to restate my interest. Again, I would be personally supportive of conveying either a part or a whole or the whole of property to the tribe. That is something that I personally would be interested in, but I would want that predicated upon conversation and that direction.
Yeah,
and again, we can't commit to a specific development during the work session, but the other two items of interest were potential for recreation options with the property, and then also mainly focused around discussion of a potential installation of solar fields or a solar field, potential for a revenue generating option. Let's see. Commissioner Furchbacher.
Question for the attorney. If we were to, in part or in whole, give the land to the Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe, how would that be handled within the state? Would the state allow us to do that? Would there be strings attached to that? Is that part of that? I know that there was something they had to have first dibs if we did something with it. So what would that look like?
So the original law that authorized the city of the land to the city, sale of the land to the city, contemplated the city selling the property. There was a clause at the end of the statute that was inserted that's not typically in these laws that granted the state a right of first refusal and 50% of the proceeds of a sale if the sale was within the first 10 years after the city took ownership. So that clause is expired. The meaning of that clause, the meaning of the expiration of that clause was something that was part of the litigation that wasn't really cleared up. We obviously take the position that there's no limit, there's no prohibition on the city selling the land, right? It would seem illogical to say that, well, somehow the language of the statute prevents the city from selling it now, right? That would seem odd in the broader context of how property law works. That said, any purchaser of the property or any lessee of the property is still subject to the state's right of reentry, right? And the risky part under the statute is that if the state moves to reenter the property and regain control, that any improvements made on that property and investments made on it also go to the state, right? So any purchaser is taking it subject to that risk, right? If the state were to come in and say, no, it's not being used for public use anymore, we're going to come in, we're going to take control, and we gain title to all the improvements. In the person that's made the investments is out of luck, right?
Yeah.
So whether that's the tribe or another governmental unit or anyone else would be subject to that revision. Now, there's a possibility that the city, the tribe, and the state could agree on a series of transactions that would allow that to be released or would allow some sort of agreement as to what those permitted uses are going to be. We've had some of those conversations in the past on other projects, some successful, some not.
Yeah, it's, I'm the only one on the commission here who has been on long enough to know what is going on with the deed and all of that yuck that happened. So my concern is I would think that the state would be unwise if we deeded the property to the tribe to pull the property from the tribe. I think that would be extremely unwise. I'm not saying that it wouldn't happen because politics is politics and it's an odd animal. But that is something that I think about. I think that at this point, the city cannot use that property for anything that would be economic development. Which was the intent of purchasing the property, was to do homes, to do shops, things like that. When they discovered that it couldn't be used that way, then it just seemed like everything just fell apart. Unfortunately, at that time, there were things that they could have done. They could have leased it to CMU when CMU was talking about their med school. They could have started looking at building a hospital there. I mean, there were things that could be done, but it wasn't done that way. So my thought at this point, I had a friend who actually thought that we should sell it to the county so the county could put the jail on it. And I said, I think that land has had enough oppression on it, and that would not be something that I would have supported. But at this point, it just seems like the tribe has been an extremely generous partner in our for the city and for the county, and they are one of our bigger, one of the biggest employers. And I know that they are looking at doing some growth, and I would have no problem conveying the land to them at this point. But my biggest concern is, would this state suddenly get a burr in their shoe and decide that they have to pull it back?
Yeah, as of now, the tribe or any other purchaser or lessee would be subject to the same restriction. But I will leave the political side of that to you all. Yeah.
Thank you.
Given
Commissioners,
the
go-
conversations between the commissioners this evening, I'm curious if there's any interest in having the city assess feasible partitions for the property to look at possible leasing to the tribe or conveying it to them for that east-west joint for those two pieces of property, maybe divvying up that south side to retain a joint stewardship that we can coordinate with them for some type of project in the future, and maybe the north side for possible recreation use or something along those lines in the future.
Yeah, I would feel comfortable like having that like that I think that would be a good way to approach the conversation as far as like talking with the tribe again, their interest and their legal, I would say even what is their legal and political assessment also, because I mean if we were to convey the property again as Commissioner Perschbacher aptly pointed out, it'd be the concern of a political wherever political headwinds go, the state attempting to reclaim the property from the tribe. What is their thoughts on that? What is like if we were to convey portions or all of the property to the tribe? Do they feel comfortable taking that on? But if we wanted to look at it also as far as like pseudo parcels essentially for discussion purposes for either shared uses between the and stewardship between the two bodies or communities. I think that would be a good conversation to have. One aspect I did want to note also, again, there is the creek that runs along the northern portion of it. City charter prevents us from dispensing of property within 100 feet of a tributary to the Chippewa River, except by the vote of the city as a whole. We would need to put that out forward as a ballot measure. So as we're having this conversation, it's keeping in mind that like if we include the street, like the stream portion, like the portion surrounding the stream, it would also be putting this to a potential ballot measure. But also it's giving part of this conversation is also giving time for the rest of the public to also comment on this. We haven't had this really back in front of open session in quite some time. This meeting is, I think, the first time in my 4 years on the city commission that we've really had a deep dive discussion on the property outside of closed session. So again, I would imagine that we are going to hear from fellow residents, fellow community members, and start getting interest from there as well. Manager, since did you have comments? It looks like you're starting to lean forward a bit more. I didn't know if you were gearing up there. But yeah, I think, again, from all corners of the table, I think I'm hearing serious conversation about, first and foremost, we want cooperation with the tribe. We want to consider strategies on conveying property. What would it look like to transfer stewardship? In what manner would that look like to the tribe to fit with the vision that they have in respect of the cultural heritage, in respect of the traumas that occurred there. So I think that's definitely where the mindset of the commission is. Other comments or questions at this time, though?
Are we giving?
I'm going to go with Commissioner Alsager first.
Well, when we heard the presentation from the tribe, they were talking about 3 of the buildings that they plan on rehabbing, starting with the gym. And so they definitely have plans for the buildings they already have. So this is good. This is good.
Gotcha. Commissioner Eke, or Vice Mayor Eke?
I was just going to, I'm trying to clarify where we are. Are we therefore giving manager dissents and staff, or at least charging them or giving them direction to begin some conversation with the tribe in this direction, in the direction that we're going right now, at least, to ascertain or clarify from them how this would work into if a certain portion or all of the land, except for the area surrounding the river, were to be returned or conveyed. I'm using your word conveyed. I use return, specifically, purposefully, to the tribe. What would that look like? Are they interested in that? I think it's, part of the conversation that maybe, they can start having and then bring back some information for us before we then decide whether or not we're going to have a robust conversation with, and public conversation with the tribe.
I think that would be a good summarization of what I've heard as the interest of the commission here. Manager
So giving
dissents,
them direction then?
yeah, does staff feel comfortable, like, have information to work with as far as direction to go, to proceed with?
Yep, very much so.
Okay,
Yes, thank you.
gotcha. Any other final comments from members of the commission at this time? Not seeing any?
Yeah, can I
Oh,
just?
Vice Mayor.
I just want to say, those of you who know me probably know where my head is, and I want to say thank you to my colleagues for your willingness to have this particular conversation. I know how difficult this conversation can be and how problematic it can be, but I thoroughly appreciate your willingness and your openness and your sincerity in having this conversation to help us move forward. So thank you very much.
Okay. There being no further business before the commission at this time, we will stand adjourned at 8:51.
Everybody.